Good morning. Can you hear me? Are we awake? It's Wednesday, right? We made it halfway. I hope you guys had a wonderful first day here at CS2, and I am delighted to kick us off for day 2. So, good morning. Is everyone awake? Did you have your coffee? How's breakfast? It looks good. So as mentioned, my name is Victoria Pilliteri. I am a senior computer scientist at the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And while the title says 171 Rev 3 update, I'm really going to talk more about the planned updates to the series of the CUI publications that NIST puts out. I know that you might have heard of these little known pubs, 171, 171 alpha, right? Maybe. So we're going to dive in a little bit deeper, looking at the history of how we got to where we are and looking forward for what's ahead for this series, as well as sharing some information about the suite of standards and guidelines that NIST has. This is a little echoey. Is that all right? Is it all right? Well, you're stuck with me for the next hour anyways. So let's dive right on in. So, as I mentioned, we'll be talking about the CUI series, including the recent pre-call for comments that NIST put out just about, I think, a week and a day ago, and looking ahead for the path forward for how NIST is going to improve our series of publications and engage with you, our stakeholders. At any point, please feel free to contact me, send an email. We try to be really responsive to the inquiries we get. I understand that a lot of questions end up being about this little known program called CMMC. And we will, of course, do our best to answer what's within our scope. And we'll always punch you over to our friends over at DoD if that's not the case. So here's the agenda for today. 60 minutes of fun. Are you ready? Okay, let's try that again. Are you ready? So I'm going to tell you a secret before we get started. I like to teach group fitness for fun at 6 or 5 in the morning, so let's try this one more time, or I will make you do push-ups on the floor. Are you ready? Thank you. I was going to say the internet folks were louder than you guys, and so let's dive into the agenda. We'll talk a little bit about the National Institute of Standards and Technology, what we are and what we are not. We'll go back looking at the CUI series, 171, 171 alpha, 172 and 172 alpha, an overview and about the development. We'll dive right into the pre-call for comments on the CUI series and really spend some time talking about some of the things that we, as NIST, want to hear from you. Nothing is off the table, as long as it's related to CUI. We'll be looking ahead at the path forward after the call for comments closes. And of course, we have to celebrate 50 years of cybersecurity at NIST by sharing some resources and other things that NIST is working on that we really count on you, our stakeholders, our community of interest to help support. I'll leave you with some slides on additional resources and leave plenty of time for Q&A. So let's rock and roll. All right, about NIST. Our mission is to promote U.S. innovation and industrial competitiveness by advancing measurement science, standards, and technology in ways to enhance economic security and improve our quality of life. That was a really long and complicated way to say we do measurement science research to support U.S. economies. All right, so if you can't measure it, you can't sell it. All right, and that's why NIST is within the U.S. Department of Commerce. At the end of the day, it's not our space to pick winners or losers. We're not going to say this technology is great, this company is great, y'all are great. What we're here to do is make sure that we're able to measure and quantify the goods and services that are being sold within the U.S. economy. Specifically, within our organization, we have laboratory programs where all the research, the foundational research, develop those standards and technology is conducted. So you'll see the 6 laboratory programs of NIST here. I'm sure most of you have heard of the one that I work in, the Information Technology Laboratory, because I think we put out those CUI publications. Maybe. So within our Information Technology Lab, our mission specifically is to cultivate trust in IT and metrology. From From the IT lab, we have different research groups focused on everything from foundational cybersecurity research. Think the crypto, the risk management, and security engineering principles that are the foundation for all of our businesses. We have mathematicians, we have our applied cybersecurity division, and many others that do research in IT. We do that foundational and applied research to develop standards and best practice guides to make our systems more secure, usable, interoperable, and reliable. These are just a few of our major programs that I wanted to highlight. Did you know that NIST does cybersecurity and privacy? Oh my God. We have an emerging program on quantum information science and also an emerging program on artificial intelligence. Not that that's a hot topic that, a whole other conference could be about, right? In addition to our laboratory research programs, NIST offers the industry and an innovation services portfolio. From this portfolio, I'd like to highlight the Holland's Manufacturing Extension Partnership Program. Now, this is our presence in every single state and Puerto Rico across the US. So if you're not based in DC, which so good for you, because being based in DC, right? This is the program that has a national network of centers located across the country. So if you're a small or medium manufacturer or business, it's most likely that you've had the opportunity to engage with the folks at these MEP centers through our national network, where they provide this public-private partnership, partnering with local businesses to help improve all facets of small and medium manufacturing. So the mission here is to transfer technology and expertise to the small and medium manufacturers where you are. So you'll notice, I think that, I can't promise the logo's where the actual location is. The logo's where it fit in the state. But within each and every state, there is a center through grants that are given through NIST, the government, to these local centers. These centers are able to support your local businesses. So if you haven't had the opportunity to work with your local MEP center, reach out. They're really great folks. They offer great resources. And they are the boots on the ground folks to help implementers identify the solutions, find what you need to solve your problems in cybersecurity and elsewhere. All right, so that's enough about NIST. Actually, no, let me go back. So let's talk, so I talked a lot about what NIST is. We do research. We develop standards, we develop guidelines and best practices for all stakeholders, whether they be government, small, medium businesses, academia, international. Our resources are used worldwide, for better or worse. What we are not a regulatory agency. We have no role in saying, all right, your organization, you say you implemented 171, I'm gonna audit you. Not NIST's job, right? At the end of the day, the guidelines, the security guidance, the technical guidance that we put out from our research labs are designed to be almost a strong foundation for all organizations. We've developed these guidelines with the understanding that each organization is going to need to take this foundational guidance and tailor it to fit the unique mission, business needs, the architectures that you have within your organizations and the clients that you ultimately serve. I mean, ultimately, it'd be saying, oh yeah, NIST, you put out this, t-shirt, it's a one-size-fit-all. So that's expecting that shirt to fit me. Maybe it'd be a nice, proper fit. But also that shirt's also gonna fit Jacob, right? Might be a little bit of a crop top. They're so in right now, so he'd look fabulous, right? He'd look fabulous. So ultimately, at the end of the day, the guidelines that NIST put out are that starting point for organizations to take and leverage within the context of your own organization. So we frequently, at least like 5 a day, get questions. Can you tell me if I'm 171 compliant? Can you tell me if I'm CMMC compliant? Ultimately, it's the federal organization, and I'm going to say it, at the end of the day, most of the people, it's DOD, right? Because you're working with the DIB. It's the federal organization that's issuing that contract that you want to work for that determines compliance. It would be, like NIST me saying that I'm going to accept risk for Jacob today. So he likes fruity drinks with umbrellas. Keep them coming after the conference. It's not my place to say, right, what's acceptable to an acceptable risk and an acceptable solution or implementation on behalf of another federal agency. So just kind of setting the scope, right? We do standards that are used across the supply chain. All right, let's talk about CUI. So we know about these 4 little publications, and really, if you think about it, they are little publications. Has anyone read 853? These are little publications. The series was developed to help protect controlled and classified information in non-federal systems and organizations. We have 4 publications. First and foremost, 171, that identifies the CUI security requirements. These requirements were designed and tailored down to focus on protecting the confidentiality of CUI in non-federal systems and organizations. And this is a really big emphasis because within the federal government, in a federal system, they got to follow a whole bunch of different other rules. So, you know, lucky us. How do you know if the 171 requirements are in place, operating as intended, and achieving the desired results? Why, we have a solution for that. 800-171 Alpha. The Alpha is for assessment, provides organizations assessment procedures for each and every CUI security requirement in 171. It also presents an assessment methodology and the starting point of procedures to assess those CUI security requirements. What it ultimately does is take each statement, a requirement statement in 171, and decompose it into a more granular level so that you as an assessor, or the person being assessed, is able to say, all right, I have this, 4-part sentence that's kind of a paragraph of requirements. How do I break this apart? And as an assessor, evaluate, am I doing part A, B, C, and D? It also presents potential test methods and potential assessment objects, artifacts, if you will, that could demonstrate if you are meeting that security requirement or that part of a security requirement. It provides artifacts, things that you can review, like security plans, contingency plans, et cetera. Individuals in the organization that an assessor could speak to attest to, hey, are you actually doing this? And also some example test mechanisms that can evaluate, is this outcome being achieved in an automated means? So ultimately, 171 Alpha is broken down to help both the organization prepare for an assessment and the assessor to conduct said assessment. And I think, I've skimmed some of that CMMC stuff. I think it's kind of the foundation of that assessment, right? Maybe? Do I have any assessors in the house? Where are you guys? Come on, you guys know. All right, so those are the CUI security requirements. Those are the ones that are being so heavily used across all the suppliers within the DoD. All right, no one freak out. Everyone take a deep breath in, moment of zen. All right, let's talk about the enhanced security requirements. I repeat, the enhanced security requirements are a supplement to 171. You don't have to do the whole thing. It's not a whole package deal. These enhanced security requirements to protect CUI go beyond protecting just confidentiality of the information and the system that houses that information. It's addressing availability and integrity issues as well, because these were designed to protect against the advanced persistent threat. These supplement the 110, our favorite 110 security requirements, and are selected by the federal sponsor, I guess in your case, DoD, right? Through the CMMC level 3, most likely, but CMMC could talk about that. These are selected by the federal organization, and they work with you to identify the specific parameters that are necessary to implement these select requirements. I think there's about 36 in total, and not all of them are selected. The design of this publication was to be more like the NIST risk management framework, where organizations can identify which outcomes are important to them to protect their mission, to protect their systems and their information. So you're only doing some of them. All right, we can talk about more of that later. All right, so how do you know if you're implementing those selected enhanced security requirements? Why, we have 172 alpha, of course. So these, similar to 171 alpha, provide the assessment procedures for the enhanced security requirements in 172. The structure of this looks a little bit different than 171. We introduced some more technical parameters. We introduced the ability for the federal organization to select specific time frames, specific solutions or technologies within the requirement itself. And the design of these assessment procedures allows for that. We're actually really excited about how this was designed because it's intended to really dovetail more closely with the 853 controls and 853 alpha assessment procedures. It's like almost a BOGO, right? Buy one, get one. Before we go forward, I know that we're going to have a long, long conversation. Please empty your cups and put down anything that you can throw. Before we go forward, let's look back and let's take a stroll down memory lane, right? So the CUI series has been in development since 2013. Think about everything that has changed since 2013. It's almost been 10 years. So in 2013, NIST, the Department of Defense, and NARA began working on what would become the 800-171. It wasn't 800-171 yet. It took a while, right? Because the 800-171 requirements are derived from the moderate baseline of the 853 controls. You guys, you know the 853 controls? You read it every night before bed, it'll put you to sleep in 5 minutes. You never get past AC2. There's like 30 enhancements. So the CUI security requirements were derived from the moderate impact baseline from 853 Rev 4. We tailored for confidentiality to focus the controls, down select them to focus on confidentiality because that's what is important for protecting in CUI. We also, further tailoring also included taking out the really federal stuff, right, in 853, because there's a lot of federal stuff in 53. I read the whole thing like 10 times. Oh my God, But there's a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of federal stuff in 53. So we tailored that out. A more controversial tailoring decision that we can talk about a little bit later, and that NIST is seeking your feedback on specifically, is tailoring out those parts of those controls that are expected to be implemented without further instruction, direction, or being explicitly called out in 171. Those NFO controls, all right? So those are the items that we had expected that organizations would do without being told. Say, for example, the policy and procedures for each of those security requirement families. You can't really be implementing, security requirements willy-nilly if you don't have a policy and procedure governing it, right? Otherwise, how do you know you're actually doing it? So this work began, and clearly it took a couple years. The first publication, the first iteration of 171 was published in 2015. So about a year and change later, we had heard a lot of feedback initially from our federal partners that, something is missing in 171. We need to make a revision to make one change. There was an added requirement in Rev 1 for inclusion of a system security plan, right? How do you know that you're actually doing what you say you're doing? How can you say, well, trust me, right? Trust me, I work for the government. How do you know your non-federal organization is actually doing what they say they're doing, and you can point back to something? So that was added with just a smidge of controversy, right? There was no pushback on that. There was some time that NIST had decided it's not our place to tell other organizations how to assess and how to evaluate the controls. We got so much feedback of, NIST, you put out these security requirements and yet you're not giving us guidance on how to evaluate them. We need additional guidance. So a year and a half, 2 years later, we developed and issued 800.171 alpha. Very popular. People loved us after that, right? When we issued the draft of this publication, we also introduced a discussion section that provides additional context and potential guidance to help both implementers and assessors understand the intent of that security requirement. This was really important because the 171 security requirements are kind of very broad outcome statements, right? Depending on how you squint, you could see it about a million different ways. Hence the need for more discussion, context, and framing that's very generic and could apply across the board. We introduced that discussion with the draft of 171 alpha to allow our stakeholders to review and vet it to make sure it made sense and help implementers. Fast forward some more, we're doing some other stuff. What happened in 2019 anyways? In 2020, we actually issued 171 Rev 2. There were no technical changes to the security requirements between Rev 1 and Rev 2. The security requirements remained the same. I think we may have fixed some grammar, but that doesn't count. The main change here is we moved that discussion that we vetted with the 171 alpha and moved it to pair with the requirements themselves because, hey, when you're looking at requirements, having that context with the requirement itself could just be a smidge helpful, right? So like I mentioned, no substantive changes to those requirements. As a result, 171 alpha didn't have to be updated. In 2021, after some things happened at DoD, we worked in partnership with the DoD to issue 800.172. The 800.172, as I mentioned earlier, allows the federal agency that's imposing the requirements to select which enhanced security requirements apply to which systems and which types of information. So this enhanced security requirements that might be selected for your system might be different than yours, just because maybe you're supporting different clients or different parts of DoD, or you have different types of CUI that have different protection requirements. And finally, earlier in this year, in March, we issued 172 alpha, the corresponding assessment procedures. We also heard a lot of feedback along the way from our stakeholders that as much as I know you all love printing out NIST publications and reading them before bed, that's not the way that we do business anymore. We have people that are like, oh my God, I just spent like a whole day copying and pasting from a PDF. So NIST has begun issuing our requirements and assessment procedures in more machine-readable formats to really, yay! So we've been issuing our requirements and assessment procedures for 171 as well as 53 and 53 alpha in both CSV, spreadsheet, and OSCAL, which is a NIST-developed enriched XML format for easier ingestion into your GRC tools. So this way, when NIST decides we found another typo, that we can push out a data set and you can ingest it right away. So I kind of ignored the bottom half of this slide. This is the bottom half is, because let's be honest, I'm from NIST and I just want to talk about NIST, so that was the focus of the top half. On the bottom half of the slide, you see in parallel the timeline of what else is happening in the broader DIB ecosystem. So in 2013, after NIST, DoD and NARA began work on what was to become 171, the safeguarding of unclassified CTI, controlled technical information, was published. In 2015, after 171 was published, the DFARS rule was revised to cite 171. In 2016, the NARA CUI federal rule was published. And in 2018, NIST, working with our partners at DoD, NARA, held a workshop that was informational, one day at NIST. We were doing hybrid before hybrid was a thing, to inform folks about 171, to hear from DoD what they meant on DFARS implementation, to learn about 171 alpha, and to hear from industry. I know a lot has changed since 2018, but the foundation, the 171 security requirements, the context of how we got to where we are now still remains the same. That event is archived online. You can point your colleagues for a CUI 101 there. The slides, the recorded presentations are still available, and candidly, even with CMMC, are still incredibly relevant today because it shows that history of where we came from and why each of these things was developed in the way it was. One thing that I do, always want to, I should have started with this. 800-171 and the CUI series existed before CMMC. So NIST 171 was not developed for CMMC, right? NIST does the research, develops standards, and puts it out there. And we welcome the DoD and any organization to take the work that we've done and adopt it and make their own. So at the end of the day, when we get feedback of CMMC this or CMMC that, I say thank you. We appreciate the comments. It's really helpful. It's insightful to understand how our standards and guidelines are being used. But I don't work for DoD and I don't work for CMMC, so I'm not shaping that. It would be like telling CMMC, hey, you guys need to change the NIST 853 controls, right? It's not within our scope. So while we do work in partnership and have great communication with our DoD colleagues in the Office of the Chief Information Officer, we do have very distinct roles. However, we do always appreciate hearing from you of what's going well, what's not going well, because there is always the opportunity for us to go back to the standards and guidelines and make those adjustments that are appropriate to help implementers down the road, right? But there are two very distinct paths and two very distinct roles between NIST and DoD here. In 2021, CMMC 2.0 was released or announced, right? For tighter alignment between the NIST publications and what is to be CMMC. And I'm sure you have plenty of CMMC questions, so glad DoD's here this afternoon. So we took a nice little stroll down memory lane. Memories. Let's look ahead. Let's look at where we are now. As NIST, we always appreciate and value every single piece of feedback we get. For example, on 853 Rev 5, we had over 5,000 individual comments that we had to adjudicate. Every single one was reviewed by every member of my team, and a lot of them we debated. We had great debates over. So just know that any time that you submit feedback to NIST, it is read, it is reviewed. We might not necessarily do something because it's out of scope or it's, for whatever reason, but we review and consider every single comment and feedback because the strength of NIST is the community and the partnerships that we have with the community. I'm so fortunate to work with the best and the brightest of folks. But we're a really small federal agency and we can't afford to hire all of you. So we need your free labor. Give us your feedback. What's going well? What's not going well? What are gaps in the implementation? And so, as it's been alluded, I think there might be a 171 Rev 3 sometime in the future. Maybe. I heard this gossip. A little bird told me. Before we even embark down that road, and I'll be very honest, we have not done any of the pre-work yet. We have no predetermined solutions in our pockets, right? This is a blank slate. We recognize the importance of continuity. We can't just rip and replace the security requirements. So, rest assured, we're not going to start over from base zero. But I want to really emphasize that any idea is on the table. Any kind of feedback that you have for us is on the table. And we are seeking very broad feedback here. We want to learn about the use of 800-171 in the entire CUI series. We want to learn about if it's being effective? Is it adequate? And what are those opportunities to improve the entire series? Pick a publication, pick the whole thing. I'll pick on NIST. So we're a bunch of scientists and engineers. Marketing, getting out there is not our thing. That is not our strong suit. Maybe that's something that NIST needs to work on. Maybe we need to get out here more and hear from you, one-on-one. Let us know. We want to hear this feedback because, again, everything is on the table here. In this series of, I think it's 7 or 8 questions, we pose, how are you using the 800-171 series now? What's going well? What are some of the challenges? Are they with the requirements? Are they with the implementation? How are you using the 100-171 series alone or in concert with other standards, guidelines, whether they be from NIST or another organization? How are you making that work within your program? We really want to know because at the end of the day, security is a necessity at this point, right? It's part of doing business. But we also don't need to make it extra complicated just for the sake of making it extra complicated. So how can we meet you where you are to achieve those desired outcomes together? We also pose questions like, all right, 853, the basis of the 171 security requirements, has also been updated between 2015 and now. What's the potential impact as we look to revise 171 to be consistent with the moderate baseline of 853? Maybe there's a lot of changes, maybe there's a lot. I don't think there's going to be a lot, but we can talk about that later. No promises. What are other things that we can do? Do we have any cybersecurity framework users in the house? Ooh, still alive? More coffee, please. More coffee in the back, please. Any cybersecurity framework users in the house? Yeah. Yeah? Oh, thank God. Okay. If I had candy, I would throw it at you, but all I have is this or this. So is there an opportunity for tighter alignment between the 800-171 security requirements and the cybersecurity framework? We got a lot of feedback from a different request for information put out earlier this year, focused on the entire cybersecurity portfolio at NIST. And this was one of the points. We want to hear more about that. Are you using FedRAMP? Do you want to use FedRAMP? Are you using 853? Are you using ISO? How are you using them together? We want to learn these lessons from you in order to better streamline, in order to improve the resources that we have for you. One specific question that I know it's a real hot topic. How do you feel about those NFO controls? How do you feel about those things that were tailored out and yet you're still expected to do, but they're not explicitly called out in 171? Do you want those identified? This is your opportunity to participate and contribute. You've had 7 years to think this over and, experience it and implement it. Listen, I'm not going to say NIST is perfect, but what NIST is committed to doing is working with our stakeholders for continuous improvement, right? And this is your opportunity to engage in a conversation, to send us your feedback, and to work with us as we chart out the future of this CUI series, because I don't think it's going to go away. I'm just going to throw that one out. I don't think it's going to go away. So please check out our pre-call for comments. There'll be a link somewhere in this slide deck to it, and submit your feedback to 800-171 comments at list.nist.gov by the middle of September. All of the comments that we receive, for the sake of transparency, right, we're going to redact your name and email, but they will be posted online for full transparency. We want to make sure that people know what others are saying, and we want to encourage that dialogue across the sectors, across our stakeholder groups. So check it out. This is your opportunity. Don't let it slip you by before we start envisioning what 171 Rev 3 looks like. As of right now, we do not have a timeline for 171 Rev 3. I think a lot of it's going to depend on the quantity and the quality and the content of the comments that we get from you. We're going to be working with you. We're going to be working with our counterparts at DoD. We're going to be working internally at NIST based on the research that we've done in our labs to make sure that as we chart out these next steps, that they are robust, they are sound, and they really do reflect the needs of the community and the needs of our users, right, to protect that information. So, like I was talking about before, we want your feedback on the use of the series, potential updates for consistency with 853 Rev 5, and any other suggestions that you have to improve usability and implementation. Do you want us to add, change, or remove something? Any other relevant, it doesn't need crazy or not crazy idea. I want to hear it because this is your chance. So let's look ahead. After this magical RFI that just came out in July, just last week actually, July of this year, we've issued this pre-call for comments on the series. We're also working to make our resources more accessible, more user-friendly, and more helpful to the community. We actually have a great FAQ page that most people don't look at because our website was just It's okay, I made the website, it was a little So we are working on redesigning our website, making those resources easier to find and more helpful to you. So this is phase 1 of the update. Let's look forward. All right, caveat, 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 star, 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 low lawyer talk voice, right, at the end of a commercial where, you know, they talk about all the, the symptoms you could get from taking this med. All right, so there is no specific time frame yet for each of these future phases of the CUI series update. This is really going to depend, right? We want to hear everything first, and as we get that information in, we'll be able to chart out a path. But realistically, it's not coming in 2022, so you know, don't worry about it this year. Just know that we will continue to work with stakeholders. For everything that NIST puts out, we always put it out for a public comment period. We want your feedback. This is how we make our publications better. All the eyes in this room, all the brains in this room is just a fraction of the folks that use this series of publications. So contribute to the cause, right? So in phase 2, we will issue a draft of 171 Rev 3, put it out for public comment. Depending on the quantity, the quality, the content of these comments, we might put it out for a second draft. We might go back to the drawing board, make some tweaks, do a second public comment period and a second draft. But no matter any significant change, you will be able to preview a version of that before it goes out. Because again, transparency, engagement are so foundational to the NIST principles. After that process, we will finalize 800-171 Rev 3. All right, phase 2, done. All right, now we have security requirements. If we change, assuming there's any significant technical changes to the security requirements in this Rev 3 that does not exist yet, we've got to, of course, revise the assessment procedures. Once we know the content of the 171 security requirements as it gets close to final, we'll be able to develop and issue draft assessment procedures and put those out for comment as well. Because really, the requirement's only half of the pie, right? You need to know how to assess that. We will do the same process, draft, public comment, etc., for the assessment procedures before we finalize that. As we look forward, and this is way down the pike, right? Like, we have a team of 4 FTEs. I have 4 FTEs, that's it. No contractors, 4 FTEs working on this, and a whole bunch of federal stuff. So patience, please, patience, please. Phase 4 is we'll be looking at 172 and 172 alpha. NIST always follows this same process for all of our publications. It's really such a testament. I know that at the end of the day, we might not always be happy as the general we, with the final outcome. Oh, these are too many requirements, or we're not happy with this specific requirement, or I didn't get, my one pet thing in. But at the end of the day, the process that NIST runs, we really try to engage. We consider thoughtfully every single piece of feedback we get, and I think that is the power of our suite of publications. And we are always open to feedback and ongoing improvement. So I'm going to tell you a kind of secret. It's not really a secret, I guess. NIST accepts comments on our publications anytime. So it could be like 2 in the morning and you're, couldn't sleep and you're flipping through your favorite NIST publication. We take your feedback at any time. It doesn't mean we're going to act on it immediately, because I think a whole bunch of other people would be really mad if we just ripped out a pub and issued a new one overnight. But we keep those comments. We adjudicate them the next time a revision cycle comes up. So just know that any time that you give us that feedback, we're hanging on to it, and we're going to do something about it, all right? Ongoing through this entire process, we are going to continue stakeholder engagement and outreach for awareness and to learn opportunities for continuous improvement of the CUI series. And again, anything within our portfolio, right? So with my limited time, I'm going to share some other resources available from NIST and then open it up to the floor for some questions, all right? So like I mentioned earlier, 50 years of cybersecurity at NIST, yay! Yes, this is how I dance, yay! All right, so 50 years of doing cybersecurity research and developing cybersecurity and privacy guidance. In 1977, NIST issued our first crypto standard, AES. Oh, wait, is it AES or DES? Oh no, oh no, oh no. We issued our first crypto guidance. So please celebrate this monumentous occasion with us all year long. We have a website dedicated to kind of cool new things that NIST is working on, highlighting some of the evolution of our research portfolio. We've initiated some really cool new work that I think is going to change how NIST engages with our stakeholders and improve your experience and your ability to use our products and solutions, or our publications. You can check us out on Twitter. We have a very active NIST Cyber Twitter. And of course, we've got a hashtag NIST Cyber 50th. So let's talk about some of these resources and some of these exciting things that we're doing at NIST for our 50th anniversary. Yay! Again, as I was saying earlier, engagement and feedback from our customers and our stakeholders is so foundational to everything we do. Earlier this year, we also issued a request for information about our broader cybersecurity and supply chain risk management portfolio. We were seeking information on how organizations have been using the cybersecurity framework and the alignment of the whole suite of NIST resources, whether it be risk management framework, cybersecurity framework, privacy framework, the 800-171 CUI series. We had over 130 comments that are all available online, so you can see what people are saying. And we want people to know what others are saying because, again, in the spirit of full transparency, we're not perfect, but we have opportunities to improve, and we want to learn how we can improve. From this RFI, we saw 7 major themes, right? People liked the consistency of our publications, building off what is already there. Ripping and replacing is not an option at this point for really any of our publications. There's an opportunity to align our entire portfolio of cybersecurity and privacy guidelines with not only our work, but international standards and other standards as well, right? Security is a necessity. We need to make it easier for everyone to get engaged and do the right thing, right? Make it easy to do the right thing. People always want more implementation guidance, whether it be for the cybersecurity framework or whether it be for the CUI series. There's always an opportunity to provide more resources for our users. Let's empower you to do the right thing easily. Like all of our guidance, the CSF, 800-171, 53, it should remain technology neutral, but allow for it to be readily applied to different technology issues, whether it be AI, whether it be machine learning, whether it be whatever new cloud technology or solution, right? Whether it be zero trust. Can I sneak in any more buzzwords? Did I miss any of the big ones? We want to emphasize the importance of measurement, metrics, and evaluation. If you don't know how to measure what you've done, how do you express it? How do you really tell someone what you've done in cybersecurity? Supply chain continues to be the theme. Oh, I missed that. That's the buzz phrase I missed earlier. Supply chain continues to be the theme in 2022, right? Consider the cybersecurity risk to our supply chains. and of course using the NIST program to align practices and provide more resources to bolster SCRIM. After the RFI, after this pre-call for comments on the CUI series, we will issue something similar, right? Analyzing the comments that we got, showing any themes. Again, because we want you to know that we are reading, we are thinking, and we are trying to reflect what we are hearing from our folks. This RFI for the Cybersecurity Framework is just kicking off the journey to the Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. Did anyone participate in the original development of the CSF? Did any of you guys? No? No? Tom? All right, we got one. Can I get a, yay? Okay, thanks. Similar to the process that we developed the original cybersecurity framework, we are going to engage with stakeholders and work with you to hear your feedback. The first virtual workshop will be on August 17th from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So this is officially kicking off our process to update the cybersecurity framework to 2.0 to keep pace with this evolving cybersecurity landscape. We have a full day of panels from NIST and private sector, academia and international, to share and learn about how organizations are using the CSF, talk about opportunities for improvement, to review the analysis of those comments that we got during that RFI, discuss the themes, and learn what we have planned for the future, and how you guys can stay engaged and involved. Learn more about this workshop, sign up, it's free, at nist.gov/cyberframework. We have some really great panels that are gonna talk about some key topics: supply chain, international use, measurement and metrics, and maybe a little bit of insurance. So please join us. It's already paid for. Other resources that NIST has issued in this last year. All right, hands up. How many of you have printed out 171? Oh no, my God, I am the Lorax, I speak for the trees, don't do it, don't do it. As long as you don't print out 53, as long as you don't print out 53, because oh my God, everyone in your office is not gonna like you because you're just gonna hog the printer for the whole morning. What we've heard from our stakeholders is people, they use our requirements, they use our controls, but they don't like searching a PDF to find that one control, because you gotta click, you gotta download, right? We need to meet our stakeholders where they are. How do you do business? How do you use our resources? Earlier this year, we released in beta the Cybersecurity and Privacy Reference Tool. This allows you, the end user, to access the reference data, the data sets, the 800, 171 requirements, the 853 controls. You can access all of those online in your web browser. You can export them in CSV. You can export them in XML. And it's a clickable experience where you can even see the linkages between different publications. Again, this is out in beta. We just put it out. We want folks to test it out. We want to hear your feedback. We will continue to add additional data sets, 171 alpha, 172, 53 alpha. Soon you'll be able to browse those data sets online without having to download or print out the entire catalog. So this is just one of the cool resources that NIST has been working to innovate on. Access it at csrc.nist.gov. All right, so have you guys heard of this publication called 853? I don't know. One of the things that we've heard from 53 is, one, it's massive, right? It's ginormous. It's very, let's flip the script. It's comprehensive. It's incredibly comprehensive. Again, NIST is looking for different and new ways to engage with our stakeholders, right? When we put out 853 for comments, we get a ton of comments, over 5,000 on the last draft. That's a lot of comments. But I won't lie, we get a ton on the AC family. When we get to by PM, PE, SC, the drop-off is steep, right? You started strong and just couldn't make the marathon. So we have introduced this new tool. It's a website where you can submit comments on 853, the published controls and control enhancements, anytime, anywhere. You don't have to read the entire catalog. You have your favorite control. What's your favorite control? What's your favorite control? He doesn't have a favorite control. AC1, guys, AC1, it's foundational. You can give comments on your favorite control. You can tell us how you think we should improve, how we should edit, you can suggest anything you want on the controls. Do you have an idea for a control that this really comprehensive catalog doesn't cover? We want to hear it. You can suggest it to us anytime. You don't have to wait for a public comment period. So this tool, you can suggest new controls, edit existing controls. You can engage in public comment periods online. So now you don't have to download a big old PDF and search through to try to figure out what changes NIST is proposing. You can go to a web page, go to that candidates button, and you can have one web page that lists all the proposed changes, whether they be significant or minor, to this next iteration of 853. So this is out right now. We're doing a comment period on 853. It's all minor changes, right? So there's some editorial catches. We've updated some references. We provided a little context. We're not changing any of the controls. But we want you to engage in this public comment to understand the process, because I foresee, a little bird told me, I foresee this is the future of how NIST is going to engage with you, our stakeholders. This is how we are going to develop standards and guidelines that can keep pace with technology and society, right? We're not on a 5 to 10 year revision cycle anymore. We can issue updates if we need, but we can communicate them out as well. So this is just a much more user-friendly way to engage with NIST. Also, actually, one last thing. I'm all about instant gratification, right? So sometimes you send a comment to NIST and it takes a while for us to be like, thank you for your comment, we're gonna adjudicate them. Now you get a system-generated email confirming, did you really mean to submit this comment? Yeah, okay, great, it goes into my queue. All right, you know when we start work, because when I say start work on this comment, you're gonna get another email saying, NIST is looking at your comment. Hey, did your comment make that draft that's out for public comment? You're gonna get an email when it gets moved into that category, so you can follow the progression of your feedback. You're able to trace where it went, and you can see your hard work as it's published out in future iterations. So we're really excited for this tool. I think there's a lot of opportunity with 53. This is our pilot. You might see this across other NIST publications in the future as we scale this capability. So since I'm about to get the hook, please stay in touch. We always want to hear your feedback. We're always open to discussions because we have a lot to learn from you. Check out our website. Hopefully a new redesign's coming in the near future. You can reach out to me or my team at any time, sexcert@nist.gov. And you can always tweet at our social media guru, who is not me, at NIST Cyber. I'd love to open it up for questions and feedback. I have like 8 minutes. Thank you, guys.
All right, let's give a round of applause. We will let her take a sip of water and a breath because it's question time. So Jacob's walking around. I'm going to take the first one from online, and then we'll go to Jacob in the front here. All righty, a nice one for you for the first one. Victoria, what is the estimated cost to implement 171 for a small business?
Oh, wow, we don't even start off easy. How was your morning? All right, well okay, this is going to be the most unsatisfying answer you're ever going to get, so just lower your expectations right now. It really depends, right? Each small business has a different architecture. They're working with DoD. They have different systems. They have their systems segregated in different ways. So it's a big fat it depends. This is a lot of interest, and I know that our colleagues in DoD are looking into it. At the end of the day, I'm not an economist. I don't want to pretend to be one. I can only pretend to be a crime-solving lawyer because those are the shows I watch. But we're just not in a position to make that estimate because there are so many variables associated with the implementation of any of our security controls. We do understand this is such an important thing for the community at large, but at the end of the day, any number that I give you is not going to be a good number. So I think we're going to have to, you're going to have to work with the DoD to really understand that for your individual situation.
Thanks. All right, so I have a technical question. Apologies to the 50% of the crowd that's not really technical. One of the 800-171 practices is control connection of mobile devices. And I'm trying to get insight into the early days of when this was envisioned and what the intent was, because when I see that, I go, why are mobile devices special, right? So there's only 2 requirements that say mobile devices. But I look at the very first practice and it says, you know, control and limit system access to authorized devices, which why are we calling out mobile devices differently? So I have this suspicion as an assessor that when we call them out specifically like that, we're not expecting the mobile devices to do anything else in the model. Is that correct?
I mean, to be honest, think about 2013, 2014 when we first started developing these requirements, and think about the state of the 853 controls. We still had a control in 53 about voice over IP because it was special, right? It was special. Think about the phone that you were using in 2015. Just for record, I looked this up, but then couldn't get the right picture. But I had an iPhone 5S. Yeah, remember that? It's 16 gigs. The screen was about yay big. So think about all that has changed between the original development of those security requirements and present day. At that point, it's my belief that, you know, mobile devices were still special and unique, right? They needed to be explicitly called out to bring attention because we didn't consider them part of our general enterprise. If you look at some of the definitions of mobile device now, laptops, iPads, think of all the other things, the endpoints that we have connecting to our networks that were not quite so commonplace in the business world then. So a lot has changed. I think at this point, this is a great opportunity to bring it up in our pre-call for comments of how do we need to evaluate how mobile devices are included in the security requirements, how they're called out. I can tell you right now, in 853, the basis of the CUI security requirements, we got rid of the voice over IP control because it's not special. We don't need to call it out anymore. It's just part of doing business. Is that a trend that we need to see in terms of mobile devices as well? And you know, I can't say yes or no, but this is something great to bring up. And you know, we want to hear about it, and we will figure out how to address this appropriately. But thank you for the question. Who's next?
Got one right back here.
Nope, hang on.
Uh-oh.
We're going for Scott first.
Oh, we have another. There's another. Microphones are multiplying, so.
How quickly can you run between? Come on, let's get our cardio. Let's get our cardio in.
Hey, cardio. Good morning. Thank you. Over here.
Oh, here, sorry. Short attention span.
No worries. Earlier brought up MEP and kind of working with that across the country, and that there's possible grant money available towards, you know, developing solutions and bringing things to market. Is that grant money possibly also applicable to small, medium-sized businesses to implement the CUI series?
So the grant money that I was talking about earlier was NIST gives grants to our 50 MEP centers across the states. I am definitely not a grant specialist, so I don't know how to answer that question. We have a small business innovation and research program. Every year, NIST puts out a call for papers. It's called SBIR, and that could be a potential venue for you to get grant money to address whatever research question, whether it be implementation of 171 or something else. That's managed centrally by NIST and not by specific research groups. But there are opportunities for stakeholders, small and medium businesses to get NIST grant money. But I'm going to be honest, we have a very small budget. So, like, again, level setting expectations. All right, in the back.
Hey, Vicki, thank you for being here and sharing your insight with all of us. So I have two questions. The first one is, so you mentioned that 171 started about 10 years ago, and there's been a lot of developments in cybersecurity, one of which is ransomware, which really speaks to the idea that it's not just confidentiality that it's important, it's also availability. So I wanted to ask, is NIST currently empowered to consider integrity and availability when it comes to CUI in 171? Or is NIST's current mandate limited solely to looking at confidentiality? And then my second question is, this is coming from like a risk management framework perspective, when NIST thinks about 171 and how it's being implemented, where's the risk management happening? Is it in the selection of controls? Is it in assessing the results and the mitigating controls and the POAMs as a result? Or is it both?
Okay, so I'm going to try to remember both parts of the question, but I might be coming back to you for part two. Part one, is anything outside of confidentiality in scope for the 800-171 requirements? So again, before DoD, before CMMC, NIST was working on 800-171 because controlled unclassified information, this is a type of federal information, has specific legal and regulatory requirements for the protection of its confidentiality. So that's why the 800-171 requirements were tailored down from 853 to take out availability and take out integrity. It's focused on confidentiality because that is what is required for the protection of CUI in non-federal systems and organizations. I do not anticipate that scope changing because, again, it's all per NARA, who is the executive agent for CUI. That is what we are tasked to protect, right, from a security perspective, the confidentiality. Now, if you want the whole shebang, you got 853. All right, part two. RMF and risk management, right, with 171. So at the end of the day, 800-171, as it's being used by non-federal organizations, it's for non-federal organizations that are storing, processing, or transmitting CUI. You are responsible for protecting it all goes back to confidentiality. You are responsible for protecting the confidentiality of that CUI, all right? So it's part of risk management from the federal agency. How do I know that my third-party vendor or person in my supply chain is protecting this federal information, the confidentiality of this federal information? So it's part of their risk management. I think a lot of organizations use 171 as the basis of, it's a good foundation if you don't have a security program. It's a good place to start. It's a set list of things that you can do, and it has references to like a gajillion other things. But at the end of the day, it's only focused on confidentiality. We do recommend that you have an overarching cybersecurity program that addresses cybersecurity more programmatically and across your enterprise, because 171 is and was designed to protect the confidentiality of that CUI in a specific part of your organization, in a system or a subsystem. All right.
So we have many, many questions. Do you mind if we stretch for a few more minutes, Vicki? Is that okay with you?
I mean, I did do my hair. So
okay, perfect.
We might as well make this count.
Your hair looks great. So on that note, there is a question online. It was quite lengthy, and it can basically be summed up as FIPS validated encryption. Why?
I want to hear the whole thing. I want to hear. All right, so again, these are derived from the 853 controls. All right, the 853 controls were originally designed for federal information and systems. We understand they're voluntarily used by all sectors and tailored appropriately. But when we're thinking about federal information, we need to know, we need to have the assurances that that information and its confidentiality is being protected. commensurate to how it should be protected by that federal agency. So that's why I know it's a huge point of contention. I know that there have been some issues transitioning to FIPS 140-3, and the labs are backed up. But at the end of the day, think about it this way. You have federal information in your systems. You need it to do business, right? In order to provide that service that you are providing, or the expertise or the product that you're providing to the government, you have federal government information that requires safeguarding. So it comes back to that. How do you show your federal sponsor that you have the safeguards in place? And FIPS 140 is just one way to demonstrate that you are protecting that information adequately.
Just a quick twist on that question. Probably the single most common issue with FIPS validation is the tension between maintaining updated patching and maintaining FIPS validated crypto. We've heard tales of NIST's position, obviously, since everyone is aware. Is there an official position from NIST on the trade-off between maintaining up-to-date patching and maintaining FIPS validated cryptography?
So we understand that, the process does not move as quickly as one would like. We are addressing those issues internally. So I don't have a great answer to that, other than we are aware, and we are trying to work through this. Obviously, with the transition, it has been a little extra challenging, but more to come. I know that there's been a lot of work in our crypto module validation, algorithm validation programs to help streamline the process and make it move faster.
Great. One other question we had online. We're going to switch to buzzwords now.
Ooh, buzzword, bingo!
Primarily, all NIST standards are based on network-centric security. The modern goal, such as under Executive Order 10428, is data-centric zero-trust architecture, which can't be done on top of network-centric security. How does NIST plan to resolve the tension between ZTA and network-focused security standards?
Okay, I'm going to say something crazy, so hang on to your seats, guys. ZTA has been around longer than the buzzword ZTA. This concept of protecting the information where it is, no matter where it goes, is not new and does not necessarily conflict with kind of our network and system-centric approach to security. So there are ways, and there's one great example, is my colleagues that are leading the ZTA work recently put out a white paper on how you apply ZTA principles in concert with the risk management framework. It's not you don't have to pick one or the other. They do both work in concert. The principles still apply, and blasphemy, ZTA has been around. The concept of ZTA, without the buzzword, has been around longer than I have. So how about that?
Awesome. All right, one more question, and we'll let you take a break. Okay, back here in the back.
Thank you again for your insights. You brought up an interesting item this morning, earlier, about international compliance. And with the expansion of A&D companies now selling to our friends internationally that we're aligned with, NATO and otherwise, and operations in those locations, how does this whole CUI thing come into play? The old days, we protected all the data within our boundaries. Now that's expansion there. What are your thoughts on that front?
Well, it really depends on the type of CUI, right? Different types of CUI have different protection requirements, depending on your sponsor or the type of controlled and classified information, whether it's CTI, CDI, or whatever other acronym they have for it. There might be specific requirements in terms of where it's allowed to be stored, and other requirements in addition to 800-171 for protecting the confidentiality. We recognize the importance in 800-171 and really emphasize the importance of segmenting your network so you keep your CUI. Listen, it's okay. Like you have clients that are not the government, and they might have different requirements. We really emphasize the importance of subsystems and segmenting your network, segmenting your systems, so the CUI or CDI or whatever lives in one specific place. When you have international clients doing other things, it can be on a different part of your network, because really the scope of the CUI is protecting that part of the system that stores, transmits, and processes CUI, CDI, CTI, whatever you want to call it.
Fantastic. All right, let's give her a round of applause. Thank you, thank you.